This is the Interim Joint Committee on Licensing, Occupation, and Administrative Regulations, meeting number 6 of the Interim on Tuesday, November 19th, 2024, in the year of our Lord. Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Senator Adams, Senator Douglas,
Present.
Senator Harper Angel, Senator Higdon, Senator Howell, Senator Mays Bledsoe, Senator McDaniel, Senator Nemus,
Present.
Senator Thayer,
Here.
Senator Thomas, Representative Banta,
Present.
Representative Bratcher,
Present.
Representative Callaway, Representative Klein,
Here.
Representative Dixon, Representative Pfister,
Here.
Representative Flannery, Representative Gentry, Representative Hevron, Representative Herron, Representative Huff,
Here.
Representative Jackson, Representative Kulkarni, Representative Meredith, Representative Neighbors,
Here.
Representative Palumbo,
Here.
Representative Pratt, Representative Smith, Representative Timoney, Co-Chair Cook, Chairman Schickel.
Let the record reflect we do have a quorum and we're duly constituted to do business. Are there any introductions? I want to recognize that Senator Douglas' brother, Charles, has passed away. He was the second born of 16 children, in which Senator Douglas is one of, and I believe the funeral is in the coming days, and at this time I want to honor moments of silence in his memory. Thank you. We have a packed, over-programmed agenda, so we are going to be enforcing time limits very strictly. We are going to be out of here at 12:30, no later. The first person I'm going to call, I believe, is the last person on the, no, it's not either. It's the number 5 on the agenda, Brian Miller and Senator Williams. And while they're working their way to the table, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
So moved.
We have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor use voting sign of aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, like sign. The minutes from the last meeting are approved. Senator Brian, you are one of the favorites of this committee. Brian Miller from Northern Kentucky. I always call him the Home Builders, but I know you got a new name now. But it's great to have you here. Proceed with your testimony.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Jay Williams with Brian Miller's. And I'd like to introduce Brian Miller. He wears many hats. One used to be the Home Builders, is now Building Industry Associates. And he's here today as Insweiler Building Institute, which trains young men. We have a housing shortage. The way to get out of the housing shortage is to build houses. Houses don't build themselves. You have to train people to build them. That's what he's all about. And a decade from now, if we train them now, they will not only have the housing stock that will relieve our housing shortage, but they will likely have earned the down payment to buy those houses themselves. So without further ado, Brian Miller with Insweiler Building Institute.
Thank you, Senator Williams. Thank you, Chairman Schickel, and ladies and gentlemen of the committee. As Jay said, my name is Brian Miller. I'm the Executive Vice President of the Building Industry Association of Northern Kentucky and President of the Insweiler Building Institute and President of the Covington Academy of Heritage Trades. Thank you for hearing the subject today. Last year, we were successful through sponsorship with Senator Funky Frohmeyer of Senate Bill 164, and so carried adeptly in the House by Representative Banta, practically unanimous approval of that measure in both houses. That was a dual credit bill for licensure education. What we are seeking is a continued leveling of the construction sector on a level playing field with other in-demand sectors. And as it is, in order to attain licensure in HVAC, plumbing, and electric, folks that are engaged in those trades and get their educational equivalent through the Enswaller Building Institute also have to do on-the-job training. So not all trades in high-demand sectors have to do on-the-job training. It just so happens that construction and licensed trades do. So we do partner with high school systems in our area, both area technology centers, which are state-run programs, and high school vocational programs, which are county-run programs. And if you are an electrician and attend a school like ours as a post-secondary adult upon high school graduation, you're required to have 4,000 hours of on-the-job training. For plumbers, that is 2 years of on-the-job training, or 1 year with an organization like ours. And for HVAC, that is an equivalent of 3,000 hours of education. So the hours vary on the job training across the various construction trades for licensure attainment. Since we do train and are now working to align our curriculum with our area high schools as well as area technology centers to allow for an advancement in these high demand careers, we find ourselves needing to address the on-the-job training component in order to bring that in alignment with the dual credit program that we now have on the education side. So what we're looking for is legislation that would allow for high school students that are currently engaged in internships or traditional co-op arrangements through their high schools with employers in these particular trades of electric, HVAC, and plumbing to gain on-the-job training components while they're in high schools working for these specific trades and as they pursue their dual credit with proprietary schools like the Enswaller Institute.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there any questions from the committee? Again, I want to comment on your great work, Brian, over the years, training and now training people for these critical trades. And thank you for your testimony. You got a bill sponsored for this year?
We do not. We will be seeking one shortly.
Okay. Well, any questions from the committee? Very well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, Senator. The next item on the agenda is going to be number 4, Vintage Distilled Spirits. I want to call to the table my friend Shannon C. Smith of Vintage Spirits, I'm not quite, what's the name of your store?
Revival Vintage Spirits.
Revival Vintage Spirits. I've had the pleasure of visiting there several times and really enjoyed myself, to say the least. And she and her associates have been talking to me about maybe some tweaks in the law that could help. And we have a bill drafted. I know there's been a lot of interest in it. The bill is under my name, and as you know, I will not be here next year, so she's going to have to find a bill sponsor if she wishes to move forward. But I've also instructed the LRC to give the language to anybody that wants it, so it's out there in the public. Okay. So everybody can look at it. And so welcome to the committee. Introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony. You have 10 minutes.
Got it. My name is Shannon C. Smith, and I am here with my Revival co-founder, Brad Bonds, and he'll briefly speak as well. First of all, thank all of you very much for your time today. I just wanted to start by thanking all of you that have supported the Vintage Distilled Spirits law. For those unfamiliar, what it does is it enables us to buy from folks like you in the room and resell it to the public. There originally was a concern when this was created that it created, I think it was called the Wild Wild West. I want to assure all of you that is not the case. It was always there. You guys did a great job in monetizing it. So it's been an absolute game changer for us, and it has been a boon for tourism. We were named the Star of Tourism in Northern Kentucky by Meet NKY. And it's for the foot traffic and the volume that we bring through, and to share the gravity of that award. The following year, that Star of Tourism award actually went to CVG International Airport. So I wanted to share with you all, it's been incredible. We've been named Best Bourbon Bar of America, Star Tourism, obviously. We've been in the New York Times, London Times, Forbes, Condé Nast, Wall Street Journal. Whiskey Advocate, National Geographic. So we've been everywhere, and I'll say everyone is watching what we're doing. They're loving it, and some states are copying it. Texas actually just implemented not long ago the exact same law. And we're also hoping to open a second location in E-Town. So with that, when we are operating under this law, I can tell you there are some pieces of it that make it difficult for us to do business, difficult to compete with other states, and difficult to compete with nefarious actors on the secondary market. And a few of the pieces that can help level that playing field for us are, one, adjusting. We essentially have three requests. The first is to adjust the 24 packages per person per year. Right now we have estate sale companies that are coming to us wanting to sell us bottles, and it'll be an executor, and they'll have more than 24 bottles. Well, we can only purchase 24. So these folks are either dumping them out, which makes everyone sad, or taking them across state lines or shipping them across state lines, and it's a tremendous problem. The second piece that I'll quickly allude to is that when we buy bottles under this law, a 50 milliliter airline bottle is treated the same as far as quantity as a 750 milliliter bottle. So essentially, if we're going to buy 26 bottles, the 2 airplane bottles is what we call them, will get dumped. This essentially becomes a moot point if you guys allow a waiver, a one-time waiver or a waiver for good cause. And one of the things that we discussed is a good cause for estate sales or folks that aren't doing this as a career. They're just trying to build a business. We've had at least 2 people need money from these bottles and could not get it because of the restrictions that we have. The last piece that we were talking about is the ability to ship vintage distilled spirits. And right now, I'm sure everyone in this room is aware that that is already happening, but it is 100% illegal. We can legalize it and bring mass amount of tax dollars to this state. And on our end, our big goal is to continue for us to be the bourbon mecca, vintage or otherwise. So I just wanted to pause for a second because I know that not everyone in this room is familiar with the gravity of the secondary market and how much tax dollars are going out of our state because of this restriction. So I'm going to ask my co-founder, Brad, just to briefly give you guys a few examples of what we're looking at.
Thank you guys so much for having us. Thank you, Mr. Schickel.
Please introduce yourself for the record, if you would.
Yes, sir. So Brad Bonds, co-founder of Revival Vintage Bottle Shop.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for your time. So just to point out one recent thing we've seen is we were highlighted in a book written by a New York Times writer, and he went on Facebook and talked about how people are moving Penske trucks across state lines, and we're kind of capped at 24. So it's really tough to see this talked about, and we can't buy it. So it's, huge tourism and tax revenue, I think, lost. If we could purchase more legally, I'd say most people want to do it legally. They want to come to a legal place to sell, but they're almost forced onto a social media platform to sell now because we're a hassle to deal with. Another thing we just dealt with just a couple weeks ago, a lady reached out in Western Kentucky. She wanted to sell a very, very old Fitzgerald. A website out of New York City gave her a label and $500 more than we would give because it would take her 3 hours just to come to us to sell. So, again, it's not the path of least resistance. Folks are basically shipping their bottles out of the state with labels given by websites in other states, and then how can we compete with that? So I don't know.
It's perfect. And I'll just add another caveat to the shipping. There are folks that cannot get in their car. So whether we're buying from someone or selling to someone, it has to happen on our site. So people have to travel to bring us the bottle, have us look at the bottle, price the bottle, and we may or may not be able to sell it. We've got a gentleman that's been waiting 2 years for us to open a location, hopefully closer to him, so he can sell us a bottle because he cannot get to us and we cannot go to him. So those are some of the barriers that we're looking at that make it more difficult to do business. And I know other states are actively taking a look to be a little more agile, and I don't want anyone to do bourbon, sell bourbon or buy bourbon than we do here in Kentucky.
Very well.
Yep.
Very
Thank
well.
you.
I know we have some questions here, so I
Yep.
want to try to get to that if we can. You have 4 minutes. Senator Thayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for bringing this idea before the committee today. We worked hard on the Vintage Spirits Act, and it's good to see businesses like yours created once we lifted artificial barriers to free enterprise. However, I always thought the 24 bottle a year limit was another artificial barrier, but I was told at the time that it was necessary to get the bill passed. I won't be here in January either, but I certainly would like to see this particular barrier removed. I'd like to get my hands on that bottle of Old Fitzgerald that you talked about. I'm sorry I haven't been to your store. I would like to see it next time I'm in North. That'll be great. We'll meet you there, and then we'll go to Turfway. But I see the proprietors of Justin's House of Bourbon in Lexington and Louisville, Justin Sloan and Justin Thompson, are in the room, and I just would like to know if they support the bill before we finish talking about this topic today.
Sure.
Yes, sir. As it's written, obviously, that would be a huge thing to open up the state of Kentucky in business more than one kind of hindering it is now.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you all. Hope you find a good sponsor and get the bill passed in the next session. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. I think that is all the questions or comments. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you for staying under the time limit. Good to see you again,
You
and
too.
hopefully we can make some progress.
Yep. Thank you guys very much.
Next, we will do number 3 on the agenda. Jamie, President Eads, President and CEO of the Kentucky Racing and Gaming Corporation, for their update, and she has several guests with her, at least one. Good to see you also, and it's been great working with you. Looking forward to seeing you at Turfway in a week or so. This is going to be your update again. As we talked before the meeting, we are on some time constraints, so if you could keep the thing to 15 minutes, we would appreciate it. Introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Schickel and Co-Chair Cook and members of this committee for the invitation and opportunity to testify today. I'm Jamie Eads. I'm the President and CEO of the Kentucky Horse Racing and Gaming Corporation. And next to me, I have Susan Speckert. She's our Chief Operating Officer. Behind me, I have Hannah Sims. She's our Director of Sports Wagering. Drew Connors, our Director of Incentives and Development. And Travers Manley, who's our Interim GC and Senior VP of Gaming. Today, we will be updating you on the incentives and development, the equine industry in general, historical horse racing, sports wagering, and the implementation of Senate Bill 299. Racing in the Commonwealth has never been stronger. There are 9 licensed racetracks in Kentucky, 5 thoroughbred, 3 standardbred, and 1 quarter horse. Thanks to the hard work of you and the entire General Assembly, there are 3 thriving development funds. And if you go to page 3 in your packet, at the very top, you'll see purse contributions to our Kentucky Thoroughbred Development Fund, often referred to as KTDF. In 2023, the KTDF distributed over $48 million in added purse money to Kentucky breds racing at Kentucky Thoroughbred tracks. That's Churchill in Louisville, Ellis Park in Henderson, Kentucky Downs in Franklin, Keeneland in Lexington, and Turfway Park in Northern Kentucky. We anticipate total added money to exceed $50 million this year. To date, we've distributed $20 million for the winter-spring racing. The thoroughbred circuit in Kentucky is year-round. Underneath that, you'll see information on our Standardbred Development Fund, often called the KSDF, which distributed over $20 million in purse money this year to Kentucky breds winning at Corbin, Oak Grove, and Red Mile, as well as 7 county fairs across the Commonwealth, located in Ballard, Christian, Fayette, Graves, and Marion County. The Standardbred circuit starts in late March and wraps up in early November. House Bill 8 recently created funding for the Breeders' Crown, and it is anticipated to run in Kentucky in 2027. Newest to our state is quarter horse racing. This was our second year to run a 6-day quarter horse meet and our first time to distribute development fund money. This is a new program, and we are working to generate interest by advertising in trade publications, sale catalogs, as well as working with those in the business to make sure the game is and our regulations are safe and effective for everyone. On the next page, you'll see the corporation has oversight of the 3 breeder incentive funds. These programs use the sales tax collected from breeding a stallion to a mare in the state and redistributes those funds back to the breeders. Over $19 million was collected in state sales tax in fiscal year 24, And 80% went to the thoroughbreds, 13% to standardbreds, and 7% to non-race. The Kentucky Thoroughbred Breeders Incentive Fund, often called KBIF, released nearly $16 million this year to breeders of Kentucky breds winning eligible races in 2023. To be eligible, the breeder must breed their mare to a Kentucky stallion and reside that mare in Kentucky the full gestation, which is 11 months. Thoroughbred breeding has decreased in North America. However, Kentucky maintains our market share, and this past August, over 9,000 mares nominated to participate in the KBIF. Breeders have until December 31st of their yearling year to nominate and participate in that program. Our standardbred population has really exploded in Kentucky over the last few years. The previous page reflected the purse money available to Kentucky bred standardbreds, and the standardbred community combines the KSDF with the Kentucky Standardbred Breeders Incentive Fund to provide restricted stakes races at Kentucky standardbred tracks. You'll see in your packet a chart reflecting the growth in standardbred nominations. In a decade, everything but our stallion population has more than doubled. To entice more commercial stallions, we recently added a stallion bonus, and this was the first year we were able to pay out over $270,000 to the individuals that bred to 5 different stallions at 4 different farms in 3 different counties, which was Scott County, Hart, and Pike County. Last is non-race. This program supports 11 non-racing breeds and distributes money to the owners and breeders. Earlier this month, we accepted applications for our next period, which is 2025 through 2027. And the applicants include Appaloosa, Arabian, Mountain Saddle, Miniatures, Paint Horse, Quarter Horse, Rocky Mountain, Saddlebred, Hackney, Walking, and Mountain Pleasure. Since the inception of the incentive funds, nearly $300 million has been awarded across all 3 funds. Because of these programs, Kentucky has a vibrant racing circuit. While I highlight a few things, you'll see in your packet headlines from this past year, also telling the story of how much breeding and racing has flourished in Kentucky. Kentucky breds won 71% of all graded stakes in the U.S. this year and 74% of grade 1s. The Kentucky Oaks and Derby were both won by a Kentucky bred and trained by Kentucky trainer Kenny McPeak. 9 of the top 10 thoroughbred money earners in North America for 2024 are Kentucky bred. The 150 highest priced horses sold at the 2024 Keeneland yearling sale, all Kentucky bred. Kentucky breds won the 3 legs of the Triple Crown with 3 different horses. Kentucky breds won half of the Breeders' Cup Championship races and finished 1, 2, 3 in 4 of the 14. Thoroughbred and standardbred sales have had record sessions with high demand for Kentucky breds. Red Mile celebrated the 150th running of the Kentucky Futurity, which was televised on national television. We have over 5,000 thoroughbreds in active training right now. We have a training center in Woodford County for standardbred horses expected to open in April of 2025 to accommodate the growth in our standardbred population. And all 9 of our racetracks have completed renovations in the last 2 years, investing millions in the state. Because of you and the entire General Assembly, breeding and racing have never been better in Kentucky. I'm going to jump over to HHR now. Historical horse racing, which is often called HHR, joined the wagering menu in 2011. To date, there are 11 facilities in 10 different counties across the Commonwealth. $9.6 billion was wagered last fiscal year. $144.7 million was collected in excise tax, $65.1 million of that went to the general fund, and $76.9 million was allocated to the 3 development funds we just reviewed, KTDF, KSDF, and the Quarter Horse Development. We also recently added sports wagering and celebrated our 1-year anniversary, which far exceeded all expectations. Our retail locations opened September 7th and mobile 3 weeks later on September 28th in 2023. In your packet, you will see there are 13 retail locations in 11 counties, a 14th retail location coming soon. $2.6 billion was wagered between September of 23 to September of 24, with $43.1 million in state excise tax. You can see a pie chart reflecting that 94% of that went to the pension fund and 2.5% to problem gambling. I'd like at this time to turn it over to Susan Speckert to give us an update on implementation of Senate Bill 299.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Schickel, Co-Chair Cook, and members of the committee. Susan Speckert, Chief Operating Officer of Kentucky Horse Racing and Gaming Corporation. I'm excited to report that we are making great headway with implementation of Senate Bill 299, which, as you know, became effective July 1st. And if you're counting like we are, that was 4 months and 18 days ago. The The first order of business is to set up the corporation. We are essentially a startup that has been a state agency for over 100 years. So there are certainly some challenges, but we also see great opportunities that we're very excited about. Our board, out of the gate, created transition and hiring committees to oversee the transition and to ensure there was no interruption of our services and operations. The board approved MOAs with the Public Protection Cabinet and with personnel. And I want to say a big thank you to folks in the administration. Without exception, everyone has been incredibly helpful and supportive, and we thank them. We also thank the General Assembly and all of you. We know that you are all committed to our success, and we're very grateful for that. The big areas that we need to establish as independent of the state are finance and HR. The board approved and we issued an RFP to outsource these central functions in the short term and ensure a smooth transition and enable us to analyze what function it makes sense to outsource long term, like, for example, payroll, and those functions that it would make sense to handle internally. The RFP actually closed yesterday, and we scored them yesterday, and so we are excited about taking the next steps to get a contract in place and get rolling with that. The board also adopted a new organizational chart, and we were really excited about this. One, we wanted to give clarity to our team members who've had a lot of questions, understandably, and also the Senate Bill 299 really gives us an opportunity to analyze our structure and make changes that make us more nimble and efficient. We anticipate that there will be different iterations of the organizational chart as we go forward, including when charitable gaming becomes part of the corporation. The next steps that are in process, the legislative package, we are working directly with Speaker Osborne's office and Representative Cook on some proposed amendments to Senator Thayer's Senate Bill 299. These will largely be what we anticipate to be cleanup and clarifications. We are also working on a set of procurement regulations that Senate Bill 299 gave us the authority to promulgate. So we anticipate bringing those forward in short order. And charitable gaming, as you know, is set pursuant to the bill to join the corporation July 1st of 2025. We have met with the Public Protection Cabinet and leadership of charitable gaming, including Commissioner Wilson and Kim Sutherland, who is their Director of Licensing and Compliance. We had a very good meeting. We've also met with the lobbyist along with members of the Joint Executive Council of Veterans. And we are planning a meeting with the team members of charitable gaming along with leadership so we can craft a transition plan beginning in January. We are very pleased with our progress to date, and we look forward to coming back and giving you periodic updates.
So in conclusion, I want to again thank the General Assembly and this administration for the privilege to be a part of racing, sports wagering, and soon to be charitable gaming. We're excited to have charitable gaming join the team and welcome the opportunity to update you at any time. On behalf of Chairman Rabinowitz, Vice Chair O'Connor, myself, and the corporation, I also want to acknowledge Senator Thayer, a longtime advocate for the horse industry. He has championed several bills, two of which were significantly discussed today, the Breeders' Incentive Fund and HHR, and that's resulted in the success I was able to share today. I also want to thank my team. There's a lot of hard work that goes into every race day and the programs we support. And while we've been busy establishing the corporation, racing and wagering have not missed a beat. And for that, I'm grateful for the strong team that surrounds me. Thank you. Happy to take questions.
Thank you for that report, and I really appreciate your conciseness and respecting the time limits. We do have some time left for some questions, I'm sure, and I know there are some. I got a couple comments and questions. First of all, in their comments, the 14 years as chair of this committee, one of the most satisfying things for me has been the development of our thoroughbred racing and horse racing. Historical racing has just been one of the highlights for me personally, and I enjoy getting to learn more about it. There's so much to learn, and it's so interesting, and it's so much a part of our state and identity of our state. It's a wonderful thing. But I want to ask you, and I know this really isn't, I don't know if you can comment or not, but I just want people watching to know I am concerned. In Northern Kentucky, we're very concerned about Turfway. We love Turfway, and we love everything that's gone on there, but we're disappointed in the thoroughbred racing experience there. And I know you know that. You've attended some of those meetings with me, and I thank you for that. But and I'm going to continue to keep that issue on the table because it's, along with our Chamber of Commerce and our Northern Kentucky Visitors and Conventions Bureau, we're just really interested in developing the thoroughbred racing experience for the public. The other, and I wanted you to comment on this because I think it's so cool, is Turfway is really a training facility now, year-round training facility with some great successes. Can you comment on that a little bit in our other training facilities?
Thank you. And I will take your comments to Turfway back to the track. All of our training facilities are, I think I mentioned in my talking points, we have over 5,000 thoroughbreds in active training right now. It's a lot. So they're all full. They're all doing really well. Turfway's opened up for us. I think I don't have a comment other than it just shows how strong the product is right now when we have all of the training facilities packed and live racing going on at Churchill.
Representative Meredith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity to make just a brief comment about sports wagering. Jamie, thank you and your team for being here. I see our sports wagering team back there as well. Just want to put into perspective the numbers that were shared with us this morning. $43.1 million in revenue over the first year is $20 million more than what was projected by the General Assembly. $23 million was our projection that we worked off of when we passed House Bill 551. To further take that down the pike, $40.51 million based on those numbers go into the permanent pension fund. We were expecting about $20 million, so that's $20 million more to the pension fund. And then problem gaming was a part of that bill. The 2.5% going to problem gaming because of that increase is not $600 million like was projected, but over $1 million going into the problem gaming fund. And if you look at what problem gaming told us when they came to us, they hoped for about $1.5 million to build a full problem gaming program, but that's what they're getting just from sports wagering. So I think we still need to look at that a little bit further as we go forward. But I think it leads us to understand this was something the people of Kentucky wanted. And I'm exceptionally proud of the work that we did to bring it to them. And the work that the Racing Corporation, the Racing Commission at the time, did to get it out there as quickly as they did for football season, and the numbers that we have put up as a state since legalizing sports wagering in Kentucky. I would be remiss, you mentioned Senator Thayer on the Thoroughbred Development Fund and on HHR, but he was my constant partner in the Senate as well on House Bill 551 with sports wagering, and I think it is something we can both be proud of, Senator. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. I just remembered the other thing I wanted to ask you about, and that's, I know that charitable gaming isn't going to go into effect until I guess it's next year, but I've been known to hang out in some VFW halls and American Legion halls and Knights of Columbus halls around Boone County, and those guys I talk to a lot, and they are really worried. And what they're worried about is that, and I've been around a long time, and it's not so much that they're worried about being put out of business, but they're worried about in that space, if depending on how many hoops you have to jump through, they just won't do it. And so as we move forward, and I don't know a lot about the details, but I do know as a state senator from that area, I'm hearing from them, and they're very concerned, they're very scared, they're very worried. I tell them not to worry about it, that they'll be taken care of. But as we move forward, I would like to speak on their behalf. Let's keep it as simple as we can, because at a certain point, they're just not going to do it if we make them jump through a lot of hoops. And I've learned this over the years, that the government never outlaws anything. They just make you jump through one more hoop, and a strip, drip, drip, and then eventually it's just too much trouble to do. So on their behalf, I just wanted to speak up on that. Senator Thayer.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Jamie, thanks for your kind words. This is my last L&O meeting, so it's great to hear updates on all these things we've worked together on over the past couple decades. Really proud of you. When we first met, we were both working at the Breeders' Cup, probably 27, 28 years ago. You're much younger than me. You started right out of high school. Just thanks for everything you've done to implement these bills. I appreciate your kind words, but I do want to note that Senator Schickel was the sponsor of the HHR bill. Representative Meredith was the sponsor of the sports betting bill. It's just been a privilege to lend a hand. So thank you for everything and the great team you've assembled at the corporation. My final parting package as I left the legislature, you guys are doing great work. And if the implementation of sports betting is an example of what kind of work you can do, where you did move with alacrity to implement it, I'm confident you can do the same when you take jurisdiction of charitable gaming. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. And for the record, Senator Thayer, and I've said this before publicly many times, as far as historical racing goes, you and leadership put it on the mule, John Schickel, and patted him on the rear, and I charged forward. But you guys should take all the credit for it.
Can I just clarify? I would just like to clarify, Mr. Chairman, I never patted you on the rear. That was a figurative statement, not literal.
I'm sorry, Senator Thayer. I didn't know you were so sensitive. Representative Tunami.
It's a hard one to follow. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a brief comment. Jamie, thank you for everything that you're doing. Your leadership is definitely needed at this really, really exciting time. It's really exciting. I mean, all the planets are aligning, and it's showing our commitment. The prosperity of the Commonwealth rides on the back of our equine industry and our bourbon industry. We've got a good partnership going there. I think it's important to look into the very recent past. I mean, I know what the fetal foal outbreak did to the equine industry. I look from a different perspective, from the science side. Look how far we've come from that. I mean, just the stats that you were reading off are absolutely amazing. I know the jewel in the crown of the 45th district is Keeneland. And Mr. Chairman, I know you've got Turfway up there, and if people compare any experience to Keeneland, they're going to come up on the short end of that stick. Keeneland is the experience. With the economic impact report out of U of L, $1.6 billion for Keeneland. That is so incredible. And thank you for your leadership for this, and I look forward to seeing what you all do next. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? We're moving right along here. Thank you.
Do you have time just a second?
Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be real brief. You was talking about Turfway. I've had the experience of racing there for probably 15 years, and I will say the facility is outstanding that you've done there. One thing that I would say to the Racing Commission that I have had concern with is race dates. I know you're hit with that all the time. We know that there's a lot of horses that are being shipped in for a 7-day meet at Kentucky Downs now from overseas. They're just coming down for those specific races because of the purses. And but, Mr. Chairman, I think that race dates has a lot to do with participation. When we go to Turfway, it's in the 30s and 40s in the temperature. I would think if there was a split of your race dates, it would help. But I think race dates is things that we need to be looking at in the future to enhance our participation in these tracks. But thank you for my comments, being able to give a comment.
You're welcome. Okay, we're moving right along. The next item I think might take a few minutes. It's number 6, Vaping Issues. And I see Senator Higdon, you're first there. If you want to take the chair, and if you kind of MC this presentation for me, I'd appreciate it. And this is an item I get a lot of questions and comments about, so we want to do our due diligence on it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'd like to thank Jasmine Williams for her help with this piece of proposed legislation, and also Allison Taylor with the ABC for her help, and along with the American Lung Association. A lot of folks interested in this, and as you all know, we passed House Bill 11 last year, Representative Raymer's bill. And in that bill, it deferred back to some old legislation as far as enforcement of underage vaping, a bill that went back to 1990, and it was updated in March of 2020, but just it gave the ABC the authority to enforce illegal tobacco and vape sales to minors. But it's really not that effective. That piece of legislation has no teeth, no real consequences for those who do not comply, and a free pass for the bad actors. House Bill 11, it did. Okay, and when House Bill 11 was introduced and on the Senate floor, I did file amendments to House Bill 11 that would allow updates and compliance checks, and give the ABC some authority to provide enforcement. And the way it would allow for enforcement, it would license every dealer in Kentucky that sold vapes or tobacco products. And like I said, that's how that would give it some teeth. If these dealers or these bad actors, if you could hang that over their head, that they would lose their license if they did not abide by the law. Under this proposed legislation, we would license everyone in the state of Kentucky that sold vapes or tobacco products, and it would give ABC enforcement authority over those institutions. The fines for violations related to tobacco currently go to the general fund. We would recommend that some portion of those fees be allocated for programs to help youth and their peers learn about the dangers of vaping. Regulatory authority would be similar to alcohol regulations. It would give the officers the ability to enter and inspect the premises without a warrant. It would also give them the ability to confiscate evidence of criminal activity. It also, if the fines that were established by this, if they were not paid, they would not be able to renew their license until the fines were paid. Also, a loss of license. If you did lose your license, you would not be able to reapply for 2 years. And it also said that renewal would be on a 1-year cycle rather than everyone renewing at the same time. A division of tobacco licensing with a board or branch with a branch manager should be created and housed within the ABC. Since alcohol administrators have very specific responsibilities, this would be needed also. There would be fines established by this. The first offense for a retailer selling to a minor that would be paid by the clerk who sold the product. Fines that happened after that first offense would be a fine on the retailer. Failure to pay fines by the clerks would be sent to the Department of Revenue for collection. Failure to pay fines by the retailer would result in the inability to renew the license. Another missing piece of, last year we passed a good bill, House Bill 142, that bans tobacco products on school property, and it has some teeth. It has the school systems have some path forward to be able to, if a student is caught with tobacco products on campus, it gives them some abilities to discipline that child. The missing piece from the law is this piece of legislation would add, if off campus, if a person under 21 was caught with possession of vapes or cigarettes, it would give the local police and the court system the authority to, I guess, book the teen for possession. They'd have the opportunity to fine them, give them community service worker cessation, put them in a cessation program, and that's a missing piece that we have now. We have a piece that regulates them on school property. This legislation would give some regulation of authority off of school property. And we also have an issue, and I'm not sure how we'll deal with it, but there's an issue with online sales of vape products to underage vapors and smokers. So we have to address that issue. Again, I don't have a draft of this bill yet. It's in the works, but that's the basic premise of it, is to license retailers and have fines for clerks and the establishment if they don't play by the rules.
Senator, weren't you working with somebody in the House on this too?
Representative Nemes also has legislation that he's working on. I haven't seen that legislation, but my understanding is it's very similar to what I'm doing. I will meet with him and see if we can't agree to come up with one piece of legislation.
That's always good.
It is, but
well, if there's one topic the public is really concerned about this, so I'm glad to see you're trying to.
Well, like I said, we have some bad actors. We have a lot of great retailers in the state that follow the law every single day of the year, and we have some bad actors that we need to deal with.
Any questions for the senator? Okay, thank you very much for your testimony. We've got a bunch of other people under vaping. Dr. Anderson, Ash, Gilbert. Am I missing anybody? Are you guys together, separate? What's the deal here?
We're together, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony. You have 10 minutes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Felina Ash, and I'm a resident of West Point, Kentucky in Bullitt County and a senior at Bullitt Central High School. As an athlete, I was taught from a young age to stay away from anything that would harm my health and my performance. This also included vaping. Many of my very talented friends started vaping in middle school and into high school and over time. I not only watched them increase their use, but I watched as their health and athletic performance decline. These are kids who had a real chance at college scholarships, and now they may never have that opportunity. Nicotine is very dangerous. It is disappointing to see young people, my friends, lose their future to nicotine dependence. It is also very disappointing to see Tobacco 21 law in our state that we passed to help protect them is not being effectively enforced. This is why I'm asking for your help today. In my community, youth can go to any gas station or convenience store and purchase a vape without using their ID. Right now, it is too easy for kids to buy these products and being reflected in the number of my peers who are using them. We need your support and stronger action on this issue. And Griffin will now explain how we can accomplish that.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Griffin Nemeth, and I'm the Youth Advisory Board Coordinator for #Icon in the Trend, a peer-to-peer tobacco prevention and education program at the University of Kentucky. Firstly, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee for the opportunity to once again speak before you today on this issue, as it is very pressing. With recent data, we're aware that there has been some improvement in the usage rates of e-cigarettes among youth, both nationally and in our state. However, 1 in 10 Kentucky middle school students and nearly 1 in 5 Kentucky high school students still report current use of e-cigarettes. We know that this tells us one thing. That's that nicotine dependence is still very much prevalent among youth in our state, especially among our younger middle school students whose rates were more stagnant nationally from 2023 to 2024. In the 2024 session, House Bill 11 was introduced with the goal of addressing the youth nicotine use crisis. As passed, and even if it is enforced, it still fails to include the 3 constitutive components of Tobacco 21 enforcement. That is licensing of all retailers of all tobacco and nicotine products, including a retailer database to know who is selling these products, annual compliance checks to ensure that the minimum legal sales age is being upheld, including follow-up checks for retailer violations, and then finally, enforceable escalating penalties for retailer violations, including up to license suspension and revocation. We know that these 3 elements work in other states. The data shows it. But Kentucky is one of about only 10 states which does not have a similar Tobacco 21 enforcement structure. Without proper retail licensure, we're almost ensuring that the products which you see before you today on that table over there, including this very handy vape pen which was purchased at a vape shop in Bardstown Road, will remain on the market and be available to youth. To date, the FDA has authorized only 34 e-cigarette products, with only 1 of the 3 authorized brands appearing in the top 5 most e-cigarette products used by students in 2024. This tells us that we need additional action. Without proper retail licensure, including the 3 components that we talked about before, we're ensuring that this problem continues. Our ask of you today is simple. We're asking that legislation be passed to effectively enforce the law against underage sales and to ensure that the effects of industry manipulation of our youth are mitigated. Thank you, and I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Anderson to share her expertise.
Thanks, Griffin. Good morning. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk. I'm the old person representative on this panel today. I'm Britt Anderson.
You look old to me.
Thank you. I'm a pediatric emergency medicine physician in Louisville and vice president and president-elect of the Kentucky chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics. I didn't decide to become a pediatrician because of the cute kids or the snuggly babies, though that certainly helps. I noticed that people who interact with kids can do seemingly small things that can have an outsized impact down the road. Like a boat adjusting course just slightly early in the journey can completely change the destination. Or like a child in 7th grade hanging out with some friends who decides to walk into a retail store to buy an e-cigarette. Maybe she finds one like this that was purchased in a vape shop in Kentucky. Maybe she likes it because of the sour raspberry bubblegum flavor. But if she looks more closely, she could also see that it has 18,000 puffs in this one box and more than 1,000 milligrams of nicotine. Does the retailer sell it to her or decline because she's legally too young to buy it? Such a small, momentary interaction is the difference between a child that I see in the emergency department struggling to breathe, but still sneaking her vape pen out of her pocket to take a puff when she thinks I don't see because she's so addictive that she can't get through the visit without that, or declining it because she's too young. She grumbles a little, walks out empty-handed, and finds something else to do with her friends. That's it. A small decision with big implications now and potentially huge consequences later. We know that nicotine is highly addictive, especially for young people, and that many young people who use e-cigarettes go on to smoke traditional cigarettes. Nicotine has detrimental effects on a developing brain, including diminished impulse control, learning difficulties, problems with attention, even mood disorders like anxiety and depression. E-cigarette use is also associated with increased risk of asthma, COPD, and cardiovascular disease. And despite all this, we are still learning about the long-term consequences. As a doctor, it is my job to care for sick kids and talk with families about their health decisions, not just for today, but for their entire lifetime. You have the awesome privilege and responsibility of making policy, and Tobacco 21 enforcement can change the health trajectory of real children in our state. And I'll turn it back over to Griffin to wrap up.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. We need to act further, and we need to act now if we're going to see a meaningful change in the usage of these products among youth. Retail licensure, including a retailer database, enforceable penalties, and annual compliance checks is a proven approach to ensuring that this youth e-cigarette use crisis is curbed. We need to ensure that these products, which have flashy colors, fun flavors, sometimes games, and even in the shape of cartoon characters, which are clearly targeted to youth, are not making it into their hands. We know that this is a proven approach because it has worked in the 40 out of 50 states which have implemented some form of retail licensure. I'd like to make a point in saying that this move is not anti-business. The only businesses who will be negatively impacted by retail licensure are those acting criminally and selling unauthorized products to underage youth, like Zyn and all of the other alternative nicotine products which are becoming ever more popular among youth today and are not authorized. You have the power, as Dr. Anderson said, to do something about this. We're asking you for one thing, and that's to pass serious policy to enforce the minimum legal sales age and ensure that these products never make it into the hands of youth. We hope that you similarly see this as an opportunity to protect public health, and we appreciate your past and present support for this issue. Thank you again for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for staying in the time limits. And I especially want to welcome the young people here to testify. Do you have a bill sponsor?
We do not.
Okay, I have a suggestion. Find a bill sponsor and get something drafted on paper. It's fine to talk in generalities, but until we can see something on paper, until we can see something on paper, it's kind of hard. Once you get into session, then it's the real deal, and we need it. We need specifics. But thank you for being here, and we appreciate your testimony.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, stand by a minute. I got a couple questions. I didn't realize it. Senator Douglas.
More of a comment, Mr. Chairman, than a question, if I may.
You may.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you all for bringing this up here to the General Assembly. One of the things that I'm constantly talking about is what we can do as a General Assembly. We'll do the very best we can do to put guardrails and help the public in terms of informing them, putting the information out there, helping them to understand. But one of the things we can't legislate, as much as we'd love to legislate personal responsibility, personal accountability, and even personal self-control. Wish we could. Pray for it every day. Wish we could. Wish we could legislate parenting, good parenting. We can't do that. It's not going to happen. Wish we could legislate community involvement, more community responsibility. Can't do that. No matter what laws we pass, no matter what legislation we pass, unless we can get buy-in from our public and from our parents, it won't make a difference. Unfortunately, I've been in the healthcare space now for 44 years. I get it. I get it very, very well. And it really does hurt my heart. And I want to congratulate you all for coming in today, because your peers are going to be looking at you, and some of them are going to be saying, boy, these guys are crazy. You're not. You're doing the right thing. I want to continue to encourage you all to do what you're doing. We will do the very best we can, but we've got to have a public, we've got to have a community that is going to be open to doing the right thing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for those wise comments, Senator Nemeth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Griffin. Mr. Nemeth, close to Mr. Nemeth there. Must be Hungarian. And
yes.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson, for bringing up that this is something that the parents need to get involved with Dr. Douglas. So with that, Felina, Ms. Ash, you're from my district, and it shows the concern that we have in our district for all of Kentucky. I'd like for you to explain what you explained to me about what you're doing in your high school, because I mentioned that we should also cite the person that's buying that, and you say they're underage and that doesn't work. But it does work if you're cited and it goes to the parent, because they have to go to court with their child and they know what their child's doing. But in lieu of that, Felina, will you explain what you're trying to do in your high school to the awareness of this?
Yes, thank you. So in my county, we are trying to implement where if a student gets caught with a vape in school, there is a note sent home to a parent, and instead they have to come to essentially a summer school type thing on a weekend where we don't know the exact span of time yet, but the student and the parent has to attend and learn about all the harm effects of vapes, how to help, quitting resources, etc.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have two more questions, and we have more testimony from another person on this topic, so I want everybody to be aware of that. Plus, we also have another item on the agenda. Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for your testimony today in support of Senator Higdon's bill, whether you have a bill or not, or what he has, if we can all put it together. But so impressed with our young people. Felina, thank you for your personal testimony. I coached for 32 years at the high school level, and to hear you tell firsthand knowledge is so impressive of what it's done to some of your friends and former teammates. But so impressed with the young people here at this table today. Thank you for what you're doing. Keep up the good fight, and we will too here in the General Assembly.
Senator Higdon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be very brief. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you for your advocacy for this piece of legislation. And thank you for seeing an issue and bringing it forth and looking for a solution. And you will see legislation filed in this next session, so be sure to monitor it close and be sure to participate in the process. Thank you all.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you guys for being here. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Abby Gilbert from the Denton Group. Welcome to the committee. Introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony. You have 10 minutes.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Abby Gilbert, and I represent the Vapor Technology Association. I'm here to read a statement on their behalf today. The Vapor Technology Association is the leading national trade association representing manufacturers, wholesalers, distributors, and small businesses owners of the independent vaping industry. Our industry employs tens of thousands of people around the country and the state of Kentucky. I am here today to provide an update on House Bill 11, which passed during the 2024 session. House Bill 11 effectively bans flavor vapor products in the Commonwealth. To date, the FDA has authorized only 34 e-cigarettes, all of which just happen to be owned by the proponents. For all other products, manufacturers and retailers would need to prove their products are in safe harbor and that the FDA commissioner told Congress that does not exist. FDA has not authorized flavored vapor products. Hence, House Bill 11 is a total ban on flavored vapor and near total ban on every other vapor product in Kentucky. The economic impact of removing all vapor products from the market is severe. 130 Kentucky small vape businesses will close, eliminating almost 1,000 jobs. Kentucky will lose $63 million in state business and consumption taxes. Further, Kentucky's economy will suffer the loss of approximately $174 million in economic input. The federal regulatory process on which House Bill 11 is premised, the FDA's pre-market tobacco application process, which is called PMTA, was declared illegal by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in January of 2024, this year. In Wages and White versus Lion Investments versus the FDA, the Fifth Circuit held that the FDA acted unlawfully in its actions related to the PMTA process and its treatment of e-cigarette manufacturers. Since the passage of House Bill 1, the U.S. Supreme Court has agreed to review the FDA's power to regulate e-cigarettes. This means that the Fifth Circuit's decision will be heard and ruled by SCOTUS in October 2025. It is clear that 34 vapor products, not all of which are unique vapor products and none of which are flavored, is enough to keep a retail vapor business operating, nor to meet the demands of adult smokers. If House Bill 11 goes into effect and the Supreme Court upholds the Fifth Circuit opinion, the Commonwealth will have closed small businesses only to find the regulation that mandated these closures was unlawful and will have an unregulated market. Our request is to extend the effective date of House Bill 11 to January 1st, 2026, to allow the U.S. Supreme Court to opine on the Fifth Circuit opinion and to allow time to create regulation which is based on science and help keep small businesses operating in the Commonwealth and adult smokers with alternatives. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take them back to the client and we will get answers to the committee staff.
Any questions? That means you did a good job. Are you sure there's no questions? Senator McDaniel.
Brief comment, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I just encourage you to take back to your clients that we probably wouldn't have a problem if they'd quit selling to underage kids. They have absolutely no problem accessing these products in this Commonwealth. And until they do, you will only find us being more and more and more stringent about this. It's ridiculous the ease with which kids can get their hands on these. If adults want to do it, want to put stuff in their body, that's up to them. But you want to keep selling them to 18-year-olds, expect us to only get more harsh. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 7 on the agenda, Representative Neighbors, thank you for your patience. Since you were on the committee anyway, I figured that you wouldn't mind being around a while. Welcome to your guests. Introduce yourselves for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Representative Amy Neighbors, and I represent the 21st House District. With me today is Elizabeth Morgan, who is the Executive Director of the Kentucky Board of Medical Imaging and Radiation Therapy. We're here to discuss updates the board would like to make for MRI technologists and sonographers. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Morgan for further details.
Thank you, Representative Neighbors. My name is Elizabeth Morgan. I'm the Executive Director for the Board of Medical Imaging and Radiation Therapy, and I wanted to provide just a brief overview of the proposed language that would update a couple of the statutes in KRS 311B. So essentially, that would provide for the licensure of magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI technologists, as well as diagnostic medical sonographers. It would provide for 2 new board members that would represent those professions. It would provide for licensure of student medical imaging technologists, as well as language to require a fingerprint federal and state criminal background check for applicants. It would also authorize the board to issue advisory opinions and would consolidate several of the statutes by repealing several of them and combining them for efficiency and readability. There would also be clauses for grandfathering current individuals practicing in MRI and sonography. What the bill does not do, I think this is just as important, is it does not prohibit individuals who are licensed healthcare practitioners or providers from engaging in their full scope of practice already allowed by their professional license, such as nurses and physicians. It does not prohibit persons from performing ultrasounds for therapeutic reasons or for non-diagnostic purposes, such as entertainment ultrasounds or keepsake ultrasounds for expectant parents. and it does not seek to regulate the equipment in any way. It would be specifically for the individuals practicing in these fields. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Senator Nemes.
Yes. And what is the purpose of fingerprinting?
So currently, the board requires individuals that are applying for a new license to submit a criminal background check. We do not have that in the statute, and therefore we cannot provide requirements for them to go through the Kentucky State Police to get fingerprinted. So therefore, we get background checks just from websites that may or may not be well done, background checks. We get them from all over. And so this kind of guides the applicant into one specific way to get that.
Why don't you specify they need a criminal background check? And then the fingerprinting, and once that you get the fingerprints, what do you do with it? Is it put on a registry for?
No, sir. So it's all done through the state police department. They actually collect the fingerprinting, and then we would just get a report of the background check.
If I may, Senator Nemes, the exclusive vendor for the Kentucky State Police for all background checks is a company called Identigo by IDEMIA, and this would just allow, like Elizabeth said, a standardization of that process. Right now, like she said, we get background checks from any old vendor online. We can't really verify they haven't been photoshopped because they're being provided to us directly from the applicant. This would require them to go through Identigo, the exclusive vendor of the KSP, and then those background checks are provided directly to the agency.
Well, I think you can require certain background checks, criminal background checks, without having in the bill that they have to be fingerprinted.
In our conversations
excuse me if I may,
yes, sir.
Carson, you need to introduce yourself for the record.
Yes, sir. I'm Carson Kerr. I'm legal counsel for the Board of Medical Imaging and Radiation Therapy.
Thank you.
I apologize. Senator Nemes, just to go a little deeper into that, when we've contacted them regarding that issue, they've told us that it needs to explicitly be in our statute to require the fingerprinting. So that was one hoop we're kind of jumping through with regard to that language in the bill.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'd be remiss if I didn't welcome Carson Kerr to the committee. He's the son of our longtime Senator Alice Forgey Kerr, I've been informed, and so it's great to have you with us and good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Any other questions of Representative Timoney?
Mr. Chairman, you stole my thunder. I wanted to introduce Carson, proud constituent of the 45th District and a former student of mine. Obviously, in his lineage, this is a legacy moment for us here in Frankfort, so I just want to draw attention to it. Thank you, sir.
Perfect timing. Anyone else? Very well. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, Chair.
Representative Palumbo, I'm sorry I didn't see you over there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have to say, it's good to see you, Carson. I've known you since you were a little baby.
Yes, ma'am, from church.
So you've done a good job, and I wish I would be here to vote for the legislation.
Yeah, I wish you were going to be around as well, and same to Senator Thayer and others that are departing this body. So we appreciate your service.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All good things must come to an end, so we are going to adjourn this meeting shortly. This is my last meeting of the Licensing, Occupation, Administrative Regulation Committee, which I've had the honor of serving as chairman of for the last 14 years. I need to thank Senator David Williams, Senate President David Williams, who originally appointed me to this position, and to Senate President Robert Stivers and the rest of the leadership team for having confidence in me all these years to keep me here. I talked about the horse racing industry and what a joy that's been to me, along with the bourbon industry. That's been another highlight. But there's been so many other, I can't really call them smaller things because they all affected people and businesses and licensure and things like that. So, but this has been my favorite committee. I think And I know leadership has told me numerous times that it's the most popular committee. Everybody wants to be on it. Unfortunately, not everybody can, but it's just been a great time. We also have some other long-term members who I want to recognize who are ending their service and have been on this committee for a long time. Senator Thayer, who we've talked about a lot today, but he's actually the senior member of this committee, and he will be departing us. And then our friend Senator Harper Angel, who she's not here today, but we need to mention her because she has also been in the Senate a long time and has been in public service a long time. And she's in our thoughts and prayers as we end this interim session of this committee. And at this time, I'll defer to my co-chair, and he's going to do some recognition of the House members.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House L&O is going to look a little different next year. We're losing several extremely good members. Kevin Bratcher, Representative Dixon, Representative Herron, although you're just going down a floor. So, Representative Palumbo, are you still going to send Babe Ruth bars to us for Valentine? Okay. Representative Pratt and Representative Timoney, and you guys have all been outstanding. It has been fantastic to serve with all of you, and appreciate everything you've done in your service for the Commonwealth. So, thank you, Representative Palumbo.
This is the only committee I have served on for 34 years. It's been a pleasure.
This time, I'd like to turn it over to Senator Thayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to talk about my colleague, John Schickel, who has done just a tremendous job chairing this committee. We have slayed a lot of dragons in this committee over the last several years, removing artificial barriers to free enterprise, and it's all due to your great leadership. And we've done some wonderful things for the horse business and for all the bourbon business, the wine business, the craft brewery. But we've done things for other industries, real estate. I remember the time we had the cosmetologists and the hairdressers in this room at the same time. I haven't seen that much hairspray since that movie with John Travolta and Queen Latifah. But you figured out a way to get people to come together and compromise, and you've done a terrific job. This committee is going to miss you. Your district's going to miss you, and so will the Commonwealth. Your leadership is tremendous. Most people don't know this, but I knew Senator Schickel when he was a Democrat, which is hard to believe. I don't know what strange parallel universe.
It's true,
but it is true. He was the Boone County jailer, and he switched parties, and so we made him a delegate to the 2000 Republican National Convention in Philadelphia. And I was his lucky roommate. And we nominated George W. Bush to go on and be president. And John and I have been friends ever since. And it's been a privilege to serve on this committee with you and businesses, small, medium, and large, across this Commonwealth who provide jobs and tax revenue all owe you a debt of gratitude. Thank you, my friend. I'll see you at Turfway this winter.
Well, it's been fun, but the thing I'm proud of most is I said we'd be done at 12:30, and it's 12:15. We stand adjourned.